that's fine too. So this is the Repair Cafe Pasadena check-in application. Um, Come on. There we are. So one of the big problems that we sought out to solve is this handwriting. So you can see these two tickets here, and down here there's this very light writing handwriting that's kind of very difficult to read. That's one of the major problems we were hoping to solve because when we were using paper tickets to track items at the event, we ran into the inability to read most people's handwriting, including our own volunteers. I'm notorious for this. And as a result, we often had to go find the person who wrote the ticket and say, hey, what does this say in order to get over that? Another issue is that we bounce around locations. And so some of the requirements of our system come from the fact that we might be outdoors, shown here on the left. We might be in random buildings like churches, is shown here in the middle, and or libraries, shown here on the right. Each of these locations has a different internet setup, has some don't have internet, some don't even have power. And so as a result, our solution has to survive all of these different places. And then finally, the big problem that we are kind of working on now is growth. A few years ago, we were under 50 repairs, and then we kind of got up to 70. And then once we hit 70, it was just this vertical growth. Our last repair cafe was 200 repairs, 250 repairs.
240, I think.
Yeah, and the one before that was 100. And so you can see that over time, we are getting this very steep rise in the number of tickets that we have to deal with. So our solution is this. We built a digital check-in system in a box. So the whole idea is this box, what you see pictured here, plus this fine printer that isn't in the picture here, is all we need to run an event. So we can do everything we need, including connect to our local network, register repairs, print repairs, all from this box. And if you can see down there at the bottom, that thing with the 9 on it is actually a battery reporting just over 90% charge at the time of this picture. So the whole thing is self-contained. It's the size of a, well, box, bread box in this case, maybe, and it can be moved from event to event, and it does not require access to the larger network or any power source. Another thing that I was asked to talk about was some of our human factors. So these are the roles that we're going to see in our demonstration here in a little bit. First, we have the registration role. That's optional, but it's very helpful to have a volunteer that walks our incoming line and asks and helps people register their repairs. We found right away that if we asked patrons to type in their own information, it took a while. Some patrons weren't familiar with typing in information, and it made the whole process slower. So we took some of our volunteers and said, take one of these fine iPads that you see here and walk the line and enter in the repairs. So we'll go through that process in a second. The next piece, the only piece that we absolutely need is somebody greeting people and printing out repairs and controlling the line. That's what we call check-in. People approach when there's a space in the repair cafe for them to be seen. We ask them to step forward. We print out one of our digital tickets, and then we have them move through the event. Another optional role is team triage. We can ask the people who work at, say, the Tinkerer station or the Stitcher station to update the repairs so that we can track more metadata like time or who is assigned to it, etc. This is not one that we use quite frequently at Repair Cafe Pasadena because we just haven't gotten there. And then finally, the last piece is checkout, where we hand one of these pads to the checkout person who marks the final status of the repair. And so what this does is it allows the system to collect the results of the Repair Cafe work. And again, that's another optional piece of the system. Right now at Repair Cafe Pasadena, we are running everything but team triage as part of our standard routine at the events. So now we're going to do a little bit of a system demonstration. It can be run entirely on these fine tablets that we have here, but it can also be run on your computer or phone. So I'm going to switch. Oh, sorry, I don't need to switch what I'm sharing. I just need to back out and come to the app. And so here we are at the home screen of the application. And so I'm going to walk you through the process that we take at Repair Cafe Pasadena so you can see a little bit about how our system works. The first thing to do is to go to the admin tab and tell us what Repair Cafe we are. So the Repair Cafe event host is going to say Repair Cafe Pasadena because I have the word Pasadena written here. I'm going to leave that for today, but I'm going to type here Repair Cafe Summit. And that will allow us to say, build special tickets that print out where we are today. I'm going to update the event configuration, and that should save in the system so that now we have our tickets properly annotated with who's hosting the Repair Cafe and where we are today. The first role I talked to you about was registration. This is where we input repairs into the system and let people give us the synopsis of what's wrong with their event. So I'm going to pick out a repairee name. How about Scoops? Because Scoops is sitting here right next to me. And we can pick a type. These are the different stations that we have at Repair Cafe. So I'm going to type Stitch today. Stitch is for stitchers who fix textiles. So what kind of broken textile do you have today, Scoops?
My hat. Where is it? It
Okay,
needs to be taken in. My
hat and
or let out. No, it
needs
needs to be let out.
to be let out,
My head's too big.
right? It doesn't have to be a huge synopsis. The goal is to get at least enough of the problem that somebody can take a look at it and know where to go. And at different stages of the process, we can add in information to see more about the repair. The last thing about check-in is we have to click this box that says you agree to our terms. Our terms are down here at the bottom of the page, and they give us they give the repairees the basic information about how our event works. So, be nice, pay attention, and know that we're volunteers, so we may break things. That's all. We do take email if people want to share it. Most of the time, we don't record email because it's just another box to fill. And then we're going to go ahead and add repair. And you can see once we've added the repair, it gives us this nice green box that tells us our issue number. At this point, a patron has been registered in the system, and they would continue to wait in line until there is space in the event. Once there's space in the event, the next role, which is our check-in role, would start. So here we are at the check-in counter. And at the check-in counter, we would first confirm with our Stitcher group that they have space. So do the Stitchers have space?
I think so. Yeah.
Sure looks like it.
Yeah.
And so the check-in person would greet them and say, "Hi, welcome to Repair Cafe." And their job is to print the ticket. This actuates our printer and gives the patron a paper copy of the ticket. So I'm going to go ahead and hit print here. And you'll notice that the ticket comes out fairly expediently, and we can tear it off. The other option of the check-in screen is it gives you the option to reprint in case you lose a ticket or somebody else has a ticket that was lost. And we can go ahead and talk about the ticket a little bit.
There's the ticket. What are we going to show here? What are we showing?
You go here. You can go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, so it shows the ticket number, that this is Stitcher number 5. Owner is Scoops. It says hat. It says to be let out. You can see that. Repair Cafe Pasadena. And here you can see that it's at Summit and today's date. And then there's space here for the status when it's all done. And there's a dotted line here and another dotted line here. So
sorry, need to get a little bit higher.
Yeah.
There you are.
So the bottom part here, we can tear off and give to the owner of the piece.
That's their claim check.
Yeah.
So that if the item goes into a queue internal to the event or takes some time to repair and they enjoy other services like the really free market, they always have an indication of what their item is, what their number is, so that we can help them find it in the system. The next piece down, or the next piece towards the bottom, beyond the other dotted line, is the triage stub. This is something that we prototyped at the last Repair Cafe. This can be ripped off by the team that repaired it if they want the person to come back and talk to them about the repair. Sometimes we've done a consultation or we have to say, you need to buy this part. And to ensure that we have this conversation, rather than send the item to checkout, we send this little placeholder, and that allows people to know your item is ready, but we need to talk to you and make sure that you understand something before you leave. If that isn't required, we just take the item, send it to checkout, and that's where people pick up their item. So, to that, we can go and see what the checkout role is. So if we go to the checkout role, you'll see there's a number of actions that the checkout team can take. And so the checkout team here, we just did Scoops's hat, and let's say Scoops had his hat fixed. So we'll go ahead and click fixed, and now Scoops's hat has been properly recorded in the system. The reason we like to do this proper recording is so that we can build these reports. And so if you look here, we get a report of the types of repairs we've done, and you'll see some are still in progress because I added some for today. And then we also have some that are fixed. This is the one that is Scoop's hat. Now, this particular report isn't very interesting. So to see the reports screen, which is becoming a big use of this technology, I'm going to go to the admin screen and select the date of our last Repair Cafe. If I can remember what that was, it was 2/7. So if I come to 2/7, I've now checked out that version of the Repair Cafe, and I can go back to the checkout screen and look at the reports here. And you can see there were 248 tickets that we dealt with at the last Repair Cafe. And you can see the reports break down the end status by the different groups. So it looks like tinkerers did maybe 20% of their repairs as a consultation and fixed almost 50% of their repairs. That would be great, except the stitchers fixed what looks like 95% of their repairs. So the stitchers put the tinkerers to shame.
Yeah.
I make that joke because Scoops and I both work with the tinkerer team. And so you can see each of our categories gets a nice little graph. And then way up at the top, we had all types. This is what I like to look at because it shows us what the system did in general. At our last Repair Cafe, it looks like across all groups, we were able to fix about 75% of our repairs. Only about 20%, it looks like here, was unable to fix, and everything else was consulted or ran out of time. And so those are pretty healthy numbers. And so that is our system. And at this point, we're happy to answer questions, or we can wait till after Peter's talk to answer questions.
Let's go ahead and see Peter's presentation, because I imagine there might be some similar, more philosophical questions about capturing attendee information, multiple items, things like that. So, Peter, would you like to hop on next? Hey. Oh, you're on mute.
Do you see him?
I can see him. He says he can't unmute himself. That is weird.
Yeah, because I have the unmute, everyone unmute, unclicked, but he's not appearing to
There we
me as
go.
a co-host. So I don't know if he's going to be able to share his.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yep.
Oh, am I not going to be able to share my screen?
No, you should be
Oh,
fine.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, I think I signed up twice and I don't know if I hit the
It's
right.
all good.
Can you see this presentation?
I think it is loading. Let's see. Nope. Doesn't look like it's loading on my end. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Yep, you're all good, Peter. Carry on.
Okay. So my name's Peter Vieira. I've been in Tucson since 2021, September, and it was in November that we actually had our first event. And I'm just going to go over a little bit of the background, some stats, and then our three different versions of managing all the repairs and intake, and then some of the issues we've identified and questions. So we started in November 2021, co-founders Stephen and Rocky, and I was the first repairer because I was actually trying to find who to talk to in the city to start one, and discovered they had already been tasked for this. And we meet every second Saturday at a makerspace in town, and occasionally at fourth Saturdays at like a library or different places, and we meet for 4 hours. So far we've fixed about 400 items, saved $120,000 and around 6,500 pounds, and our fixed rate is about 60%. And so our first version of intake was similar as paper, printed out. I don't have an example, but the basic information and basically an intake or check-in would fill these out, hand them to the item owner, and they'd bring them over to the repairer, and then it'd get filled out and brought back. This was a lot of work to digitize, which a lot of it just didn't get stats from. Some forms would get lost, and it's just like a lot of paper. So then we switched to Google form that went into a spreadsheet automatically. And then we could and then we had a dashboard that displayed a queue of the repairs and which ones were in queue versus in progress or fixed. This became a problem because it just couldn't handle that amount of data. And so what we currently have, my partner does mainly check-in, occasionally lamps repairs, but we basically created an app that's online, and it has a back end using Node.js that's talking to a NoSQL database, MongoDB, and then it has a React Native front end that can be viewed on the phone or on your laptop or computer, just via the website. And this is being hosted on render.com, which has a free tier, but it has like a 30-second cold start boot up time. So if it hasn't been used in a while, it'll have a delay before the site starts working again, which is fine because that only happens at the beginning of events. And so I will right now switch to, I'm going to stop sharing and switch screens. So I can show you the actual app. Can you see that? Not quite yet. There?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. So this is the app, and it's just a subdomain of our main website, TucsonRepairCafe.com. And so if you go to app dot, that brings you here. And so right now it's showing a current event. There's no repairs yet, and we're not logged in. So I'm going to log in. And we have two logins. One is the admin login, and one is volunteer at trc.org. And that's what everyone else uses. That gives them access to adding repairs and volunteers. And it's responsive down to a pretty small screen, which I can show. But so we have events kind of similar to Scoops and Michael, where you can add a new event here, and it's just the day, or the date, nothing special. And then you can go into a specific event with these play buttons here on the right. And so we'll go into today, and usually we start out by adding volunteers so that we can assign the repairs to specific volunteers and know who's working on what. And that basically just looks like an email, and this will autocomplete for past repairs. And they check the waiver agreeing to the terms and conditions. So that adds me here, and you can click back in and edit if you want to. And then we get over to repairs, and so we'll add one. And so this part can be done by either the item owner or whoever's doing check-in. So they'll check the button. We'll do whatever, joe@gmail.com. We record emails partly for newsletter, but also because we often end up having multi-day repairs, and so we'll email them to say, hey, we so and so, or you need to get this part. And if it's a follow-up repair from a last event, this will come up with a drop down of the repairs that they've already been doing at past events. So maybe this is a vacuum. This list here was from the repair data standard. I think, but I might have expanded it because it was so limited. And so you can put in, more info here. We require symptoms here, so maybe it doesn't turn on. And we get a weight, either approximate or from a scale we have, and a replacement cost. And then usually we'll just put this in the queue or say it's in progress, and then save it. And so if we want to assign it, we'll come down here and assign it to, say, Johansson. It's in progress. And here. And if we add another one, oops. Oh. Create some stuff here. And let's say this was already fixed. Oops. So that basically color anything that's been completed. And so that could be fixed. It could be repairable, end of life, or unknown. And if it's end of life, then we have another thing here, which is the repair barrier, to say what, which is currently not working. But it's a drop down that says, were there missing parts, or is just what caused the lack of ability to repair it. And so we could go into here and update this to fixed and add repair notes, maybe replaced fuse. So that'll turn. And so all the items that are completed will go on the bottom of this list. And that's the basics. And so then for data and reporting, currently, I've just been kind of manually doing that with some database queries. I'd love to get a kind of reporting at the bottom of this page, because this is also available to, theoretically, if you went to this on your device right now, you could see this. So yeah, that's the basics of our system. And I'll just, without going into the other presentation, a big problem that we have is the checkout and the closing of the repair. Oftentimes we're at the end of an event and people have not updated these to say if they were fixed or not, or how and whatnot. And we do have some that assigns that a check-inner and a person that assigns to different repairers, but there's still, that loop isn't always getting closed. And then this is open, as opposed to Scoops and Michael's system, this is open to like everyone on the internet. So that's kind of a sort of security, if someone really wanted to, they could, if they eventually got the login info, then they could just throw in lots of different repairs or whatnot. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation.
Cool. Thanks so much, Peter. I'm going to go ahead and start getting into some of the questions that we got from our folks. Let's see if I can pin you both. Yes, there we go. Okay. So starting with the most recent, Cami says one of the goals of your app, Peter, was to make the data collection compatible with open repair standards. Is that something you could speak about?
Yeah, I mean, I basically just took that list. I think there were maybe two lists from the open repair standard, and threw that into the app and used that for the drop down selection and actual data. The only issue is that it just seems like a very small list.
Mm,
So we end up having to use all the input fields anyway.
right. And the goal of that is to be able to have comparable data among different organizations. That makes sense.
Yeah, and because I originally was trying to like offer my free development help to um, Miriam, is that her name? Um, the repairmonitor.org people. But they didn't want help, but they weren't fixing bugs, so we just ended up implementing this. And we weren't sure if maybe eventually it'd get combined or if we could send the data over. What
And
tech? Oh, go ahead.
yeah, so question. And so both of you built these apps locally for your repair cafes, correct? And are these softwares that you are able to share with others? Are they open source? How would people access them if so?
So ours is open source. We have a web page which I probably should have pulled up but didn't. I can drop it in the chat here in a few minutes, and it goes through kind of the parts you need to buy to build our little offline kit, and the software is there available too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and for ours, I need to double check, but it's supposed to be open source. I think what's missing is just updating the README and having something really clear on how to set it up all yourself.
Mm. And what tech stack are you both using? We'll go through all the technical questions first.
So we're using what I showed, which is React Native is the visual app side, and then but we're not. I don't know. I've had trouble with it, so we've only been doing the website side, not a mobile app, and not having to release to stores. And then Node.js backend that's talking to a MongoDB database, and it's all hosted on render.com.
Cool. I'm maybe not the best moderator for this since I don't really know what that means, but I appreciate it for the folks who do.
So ours is a Elasticsearch backend. That's our database that runs on a Vue.js app that is hosted here on our Raspberry Pi, which acts as our little web server. And then the Raspberry Pi talks to the mobile router here, which gives us our little network. And then it's wired to a 50 milliamp hour battery, which is enough to run the system for like 10 hours, which gives us plenty of time to be in any place we need.
That's awesome. So when you have volunteers interacting with these systems, I know they're using a phone or an iPad or a pretty basic interface. Have you encountered anybody who has trouble using it because they're just not tech savvy? How do you handle that?
Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, so at our repair cafe, that's one of the reasons that we adopted all of those optional roles that you saw in our human factors. We found that many of our patrons just weren't super tech savvy to enter in their data, and they really struggled with the data entry piece. So we took some of our volunteers from the local high schools and said, take this iPad, type in their data. And so we've made this system such that you can run it, but you don't have to run it. And so we can have people help you enter things in. We can have the screen pre-set up so that all you have to do is press the one button, print ticket, etc.
And it may be true that the screen is kind of small to see. This
Mhm.
is, even I have trouble.
And so really the way we solved that problem was to take the volunteers that were tech savvy enough to run this system and assign them to those roles that we needed and let the rest of the event run without requiring it. Like, for example, our repairers don't ever interact with this system because we have a team triage person that sits over charge of the repairers and they can interact with this system on their behalf. So we didn't show it today because the Repair Cafe Pasadena doesn't really use this feature, but we can do the repair assignment stuff as well and track who is repairing what. That would be done by your team triage lead, who is the person responsible for talking to the patron, taking the item, assigning it to a repair, and then the repairer can continue to do the work while the triage person goes back and assigns the next repair.
Yeah, and for hours, oh, we have the check-in person that's usually a dedicated person, but and then occasionally a triage person that's dedicated, but then also turns into a repairer. So that's kind of maybe where our system falls apart is because we don't have a dedicated triager that could do the triage and the closing out and watching who's finishing repairs. But sometimes the repairs, those volunteers will use the app. Probably the biggest obstacle is just getting them to like see where I've written the login information down and using their phone because some people, don't use their fingers and they're using something else and they can't find where their browser is on the phone or can't remember what the website was and just yeah, a lot of kind of older person obstacles, I would say.
One of the things we had to do because people couldn't find the browser was put this immediate button on the homepage of our tablet that goes straight to the app and make sure that there's nothing else on the screen.
Yeah.
Because that was
Yeah.
a consistent problem where people would be like, how do I load the
They turn it
browser?
off
What
and turn it
URL
on.
do I go on? So I think Scoops had the idea of just putting a shortcut and having that the only thing on the desktop.
Yeah, and we've had a QR code as well.
Oh, yeah.
But I think the fact that we have to have a login makes it difficult.
Mhm.
And I don't know if the way I made the app, it blocks the browser from asking if you want to save your login info.
Mm.
So maybe that has to be fixed, but yeah. Um,
So I have another sort of logistical question as someone who's run repair events here. One of the challenges that I think both of you mentioned is people sometimes just leave. They come in to get something repaired and you don't know if it actually got repaired. How this is getting away from the software side, but what are some solutions that you or other folks in the room have found to sort of like catching people and making sure that all of those tickets get closed one way or another? I know for us, we put big signs at the door that just say, "Did you check out? Please check out."
hmm.
So
Well, oh,
go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, we're struggling with that. If people, you're talking about after they've seen a repair,
After it's finished, yeah.
is that okay?
Or if they're waiting and decide to leave and things
Or
like
if they
that.
just take off.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If they are waiting and decide to leave, then their item, well, we'll just won't repair that. If like they leave their item, we probably won't repair it
Oh
because
no, I mean, yeah.
yeah,
We
and otherwise
we
we
have a
just
challenge with like we open tickets and then at the end of the day we're like, why is this still open? Where did that person go? Did it get fixed? What happened?
yeah. Usually, yeah, I mean sometimes I contact people because usually we'll have who repaired it. Sometimes we don't, and yeah, we have a list of, some 5% of things that
Mhm.
are just kind of left over.
So at our last repair cafe, we prototyped a new policy, which was that our repairers would send the repair to our checkout station for pickup. That way,
Mm.
the person had to physically interact with a person whose job was to check out the ticket and make sure that they reported what happened. And as far as I'm aware, no guests or patrons complained. They were just like, yeah, this is what happened. My repair was fixed. It was not fixed, etc. And by doing it this way, it does cost a runner because a runner has to take the repair, move it to checkout. But it did mean that all but four of our repairs were checked out of 240 by the end of the event. And that meant that we had much higher data collection and were able to do much nicer reports. And it was at the cost of a runner or a runner per each station, depending on the size of the event.
Cool. Anna, do you want to jump in? I saw that you have a question in the chat. Well, I'm guessing maybe her question is about what about when you can't repair something? And I know all of us have been in that situation. You make a recommendation, you got to go buy this part. Anna is asking, is there some way that you considered integrating that in the app so they get an email with that information? Do you find that there are a lot of sort of like conversation-based stuff that's not getting captured? Are there other features that you've thought about wanting to include in the software?
I mean, we have the ability to say that like we write it as repairable, and then the next event that they show up at, we'd find there were previous repairs after we check the follow-up repair button
Mm.
checkbox, and then we know that that's a follow-up, and you can see who fixed it last time or who was working on it. We do take their emails so that we can have that communication. We haven't really had issues. Usually they get the advice and part numbers or whatever they need to from the repairer at that first event, and then they'll just come back when they're ready or when those parts are in.
I agree
And I do.
completely. Oh. At our events, most of the time, people care enough about their repairs that they'll find out the information they need, write down part numbers, etc. We did build this extra stub so that at checkout we can put a flag down that says you need to go talk to somebody because we have information to communicate. But out of 200 repairs, it was only used a handful of times, and the rest of the time, people just got their information from their repairer.
I love those. I think such a big value of repair cafes is the interaction between the repairer and the person having the thing repaired. And so I'm glad that that's happening. And are you able to unmute now? I know that there's a weird muting issue. Maybe. Well, just shout if you figure it out. Sorry that it's tricky. Ariel asked a question that I was about to ask, which is how do you get feedback on your event and or on the interface itself? What is your sort of iterative process for improvement?
I think it's all kind of verbal for us. Yeah.
I mean, we have an issue tracker on our page that I believe I posted it here in the chat somewhere, but the chat is
GitHub thing,
yeah. And so we can collect feedback there, but most of the time we have a post-mortem from our events with our leadership team, and they give us feedback about how the system worked and what we can do to improve. And recently it's mostly like, how can we improve the process around the system to make sure we're able to get people to check out and stuff like that.
Cool. There's a question also about this this wait time issue that I know at our events we just have a loud megaphone and we have someone at each area who's just sort of like shouting out the next person, and we have it's very basic like a post-it system on a whiteboard. How do you guys do sort of queuing? Is that part of your cafes? Are people generally waiting? Do they just sit and wait until they're called? How does that work?
Yeah, we have like an area where people are waiting. Unfortunately, everyone likes to come right at the start of the event, and then like halfway through, there's nobody. When we did Google Forms, the dashboard actually we had displayed on a projector screen, so people could see like where they were in the lineup.
Cool.
And we could do that again now, but yeah, I mean, our space is quite cumbersome currently that we borrow from the makerspace, but you know.
Yeah, we also had the queue display, but that's more hardware you have to carry around and set up the screen and all that. And
Yeah.
a big screen so big enough people can see it and things like that.
It was a lot of extra work that we decided wasn't as pertinent as the tickets. So currently our queue waits between registration and check-in. And then as room appears on each of the events, we can pull people in for, say, the Tinkerers or the Stitchers. And that works really well for our volunteers and keeping our event manageable in terms of the number of people who are just impatiently waiting in front of all the repairers. But that didn't solve the patron problem, which, like your repair cafe, we get people who show up at 8 and they wait 4 or 5 hours in line and they get really impatient, because who wouldn't get impatient waiting in line? And as you can see, we have hundreds of patrons who come by. One thing that we started doing in the last couple of repair cafes that really, really helped was we took the same system. People wait for check-in, and we had one representative of the Tinkerers or one representative of the Stitchers just walk the line and chat with people and try to filter out the people who it's obvious we're not going to be able to fix something. So like if they come in and their textile is so filled with holes and
Or
patches that
smelly
it's
or something like
just
that.
clearly not going to be fixable, or if they bring me a electronic and it's just melted slag, we can tell them right away, like, we don't think we'll be able to fix it because of this reason, this reason, this reason. If you want to wait in line, you're welcome to, because we won't turn people away. But at least people feel like they're being seen earlier, and that little bit of triage on the line goes very fast and keeps people happy. And the number of complaints that we got from people who waited too long went from like 4 or 5 per event to 0. And so it was very effective.
Hmm. Yeah, we
Yeah.
do also try to like have a repair that can just get a quick assessment of it. And we'll give them an estimate wait time as well. But we also don't have the numbers that Pasadena has. So the amount of wait isn't really that big of a deal. And it's like if you're only waiting 20 to 30 minutes for someone to give you free service, like
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you would think they would, but they are always indignant and like.
I find them to be indignant until they get seen and then they're like pleasant.
Yeah. People
And-
are always smiling.
At Pasadena, we've seen as the number of people grow, that there is a small, very small contingent of people who can be entitled. One of the challenges we have as an event of this size is to make sure that those like 1 or 2 people out of 100 don't color the event for all of our volunteers, because they tend to end up on, a repairer's desk and they vent their frustrations. And so that's one thing that we've been acting on, like building this line triage to try to make sure that people don't feel like they're waiting as long. Because our number one goal at Pasadena is to make sure our volunteers feel that they're part of a good community.
Oh.
Yay.
Anna, unmuted. Yay.
Yay. Hi. Guys, first of all, well done. Both projects super, super cool. I mean, I get very excited about the idea of running everything on a Raspberry Pi. The thing that I was thinking about is, for example, in Iceland is a very specific case. I guess we don't do our repair cafes for very long. They're like 2 to 3 hours events every month. So we have a lot of people that, in our case, always come late. Icelanders are always late. So we end up not being able to repair everything. So we created this little paperwork that allows people to know what they need to come for the next time for repair, or to know confidently how to go somewhere to get it repaired. And we have a few things that we don't repair ourselves. So shoes, zippers, we have a list of things that we don't repair. So we have partnerships with repair shops where we give them like the people discount for them to go to the shop to get their items repaired. Because right now, at least the feedback that we receive in the last few years is that the biggest problem with repair is the cost. And in Iceland is regarding labor, because everyone gets paid quite well. So that's how we managed to do it. So because you guys are doing this open source, are you willing to integrate this sort of features? And how are you working with that? Do you have a Git that we can come in and jump in and throw things at, or how you like to do that?
So we are always happy to integrate features. We did have some requests locally to add cost and poundage numbers, and so that's on our list. And yeah, we published the GitHub link for our app. I pasted it in the chat a while back. I can drop it in here again because it's somebody.
Peters, yeah.
Oh, that's Peters. Interesting. Our repair repos have the exact same name, just different accounts.
So creative.
Yeah.
Yeah, for us, I feel like most of the stuff we repair, there isn't anyone who's gonna even take money to repair them. But this is a repo that consists of 2 sub-modules, so it's kind of 3 repos, but is now public, and look at issues that are added or pull requests for sure.
I also love all of the suggestions in the chat for what to do with people while they're waiting. I think there's a lot of creative stuff here. I love the idea of a postcard station for writing postcards about repair legislation to legislators. What a cool thing to do.
And we were
Um,
trying to, sorry, just on that note, also just trying to get people to like YouTube or look up iFixit. Just make a little effort there if they can to save time while they
we
wait.
also we have a kids area at ours that's run by our local library. And there's arts activities and stuff like that. But we also have a take apart station where kids can, use a screwdriver and just take apart something that's like totally broken and not fixable. That's very popular.
That's
And it
how I
has
got
helped us
into
get
repairing.
funding. Yeah. It's helped us get funding because we can talk about it as a family friendly event. Then people are much more excited to do grants. Cool. I don't think I have any other questions in the chat. Feel free to raise your hand if I missed something that hasn't gotten addressed. Do you have a computer or laptop for patrons to YouTube fixes? Or do you just ask people to use their own phones?
Yeah, not really. I mean, we don't have anything consistent.
But it's always great when some patron shows up and they said, "Oh yeah, I got the YouTube video. It's all queued up here, and he had how to open that PlayStation thing and get all the parts, and he had the parts already. He just didn't have the skill for soldering. It was really that was really
We see a lot of patrons who are gung-ho about repairing, but they want like a little oversight so that they feel more confident, or they lack a very specialized skill. For a while, we were running the do-it-yourself table next to the tinkers so that people could attempt their own repairs, but have the people who are managing the tinkerer station kind of keeping an eye on them. That was Scoops.
Yeah, having all the tools there really does help.
Mm. Oh, but I do want to say that, since we moved from the just handwritten paper tickets to the computerized thing, it greatly sped up the input of the thing. And it just made people feel better because they're not just standing there waiting. They actually got registered and somebody at least talked to them. And it really moved the queue through a lot faster, even though, the amount of time to repair stuff is still the same. But it's just the whole system just worked a lot better after we got the thing computerized like this.
Yeah,
And
Peter.
and then also the statistics, right? We had mounds and mounds of handwritten tickets. We like somebody was dreaming that someday we would enter them and get some statistics, and it never ever happened. So now it's
You also need for funding.
Yeah.
Do you either of you have people pre-register before events? We've gone back and forth about this on our end.
no, it seems too complicated to kind of orchestrate and rely on that for us. And it's just another complication to the system.
We had pre-registrations during the pandemic when we were kind of at the tail end and able to do some limited events, but with very strict capacity. We had people pre-register so that they had times to show up so that we didn't have massive crowds of people co-locating. Since that has all kind of boiled down and our events are back to some semblance of normal, we haven't done pre-registration since. It's something that we bounce around every once in a while, but it's kind of like, well, our major question is how do you balance pre-registrations versus walk-ins? Because both are important and both have a place at the event. And so we continually debate and then move the can down the road.
Yeah, I don't think there's one clear answer. We've done both. We landed. I'm in Baltimore, by the way. I'm with the Station North Tool Library as well as the Tool Library Alliance. We landed in a situation where we invite people to RSVP, not to pre-register, but to let us know what they're bringing. And so if anybody is bringing something unusual, we can make sure that we're prepared for it, or we can tell them like, please don't bring your electric toothbrush here. That's gross. Let's see. Another question here. We use electric toothbrushes as a stand-in for other personal items that people have tried to bring. Let's see. Oh yeah, weighing items. So we use this as part of the sort of quantifying what we do. We weigh them during checkout as well. Do you all do weighing? Peter said you weigh them during check-in.
We don't weigh things. So the repair cafes near us, some of them weigh things so that they can track statistics for sponsors, but our repair cafe doesn't have any sponsors who are asking for those kind of statistics. So we never got into that. But that's one of the things that people have asked from the local repair cafes here in Southern California for us to get added to this system so that they can track those statistics and report.
Mhm. Yeah, there is the environmental impact calculator that I know was discussed at the summit. And I know that that is hopefully moving us closer to something that is not just a straight weight.
Hmm.
Structure for clothing repair, DIY options. And I know we're getting short on time. Anything to add about clothing repair?
I mean, we just have dedicated menders,
Yeah, us too.
but there are options for
Yeah,
people. And in Tucson, there's places where you can go to use sewing machines for free or get classes for free.
All right. Is there anything else that you both would like to add about your cafes? Any pitches? Anything else that we didn't get to that you wanted to mention?
I had two comments, but
Oh, go ahead.
one that like I'm always nostalgic of the days when I discovered Repair Cafe in Toulouse, France, and it was just organic and like repairs would come in and help repair. I mean, item owners would come in and help item owners, and there was no check-in system or tracking of anything. It was more about like the people and the repairs and nothing else. But then I'm also curious about repairmonitor.org because they seem to have hired somebody to vamp their site up, and I don't know more.
I was just going to say a question went by way at the beginning of the chat that I just remembered, which was, did we have any technical issues with the system?
Mhm.
And the worst technical issue we had was the system, this box here was in the care of one of our volunteers who is somewhat tech savvy, but not super tech savvy. And they had it plugged in and charging overnight in their house in Southern California, which did not have AC. So they showed up at the repair cafe in the morning, handed me the box to power on, and the plastic case that we have printed for our Raspberry Pi was melted into a puddle around the Raspberry Pi. And yeah, clearly didn't come on. And so then I looked at the system and realized I didn't have any spare parts with me at the time. And so then I had to rush away from the event at full speed to find a repair or a replacement Raspberry Pi. So we learned real quick, if you're going to roll your own equipment like this, having some spare parts in a box is very useful in case you have to repair your own repair system.
Well, and Mike,
That's
what's the cost of the like a base system or Raspberry Pi, a battery, a Wi-Fi, and a printer? That's basically
It's on the order of $200-300. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
something like that. Yeah.
On our README, we do have a parts list, so you can look through. We linked to various parts that we have actually acquired.
I would refer people also to the session from yesterday about fundraising if you're interested in implementing this. It's definitely an achievable amount to fundraise. And I think we'll leave it there, give people a minute or two for a quick break before our closing. But yeah, thank you both so much. Thanks to everyone else in the chat who chimed in with knowledge from your own organizations and work. It has been so uplifting to be here with you all. See
Thank
you
you
back
all.
in the lobby. And I'm going to drop a lobby link in here so other people don't have to go find it like I do. Does this work? Let's see if this works. Hopefully. Otherwise, it's in your email. Okay. See you all there.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.